He's the best there is at what he does, and for the last 2 years, what he does is nothing. He's been dead since 2014, but not totally out of the comics, as his parallel universe doppelganger from the future has been keeping his roster spot on the X-Men warm until such time as a writer at Marvel decides it's time for the real character to come back. Oh, X-Men, what would you be without time-displaced doppelgangers? Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is Marvel Legends Series 6 Wolverine versus Marvel Legends Juggernaut Wave Wolverine. Series 6 Wolverine came out in 2004 when there was no such thing as too much articulation. It wasn't about aesthetics, it was all about putting joints in places where action figures had never had joints before. In some cases, this was a good thing. Double-jointed knees and elbows, butterfly shoulders, and ankle rockers are all points of articulation that collectors still want today. But in 2004, the result was a figure with a greater likelihood of having loose joints because there were so many. His hands look weird due to the finger hinge, and toe articulation means a less stable figure. Juggernaut Wave Wolverine is a result of 12 years of figuring out which joints work, and which ones can be omitted, and which ones can be done better to produce a figure that is just as posable, but does have a cleaner look and far more stable without hand support. Round 1 goes to Juggernaut Wave Wolverine because sometimes less is more. Neither figure comes with the accessories Wolverine should have, a cowboy hat, a cigar, and a beer with the top cut off. While Juggernaut Wave Wolverine does have an alternate set of hands with the claws retracted, this seems a bit redundant since you can remove the claws from his hands without switching out the hands to begin with. It's faster to switch the hands, yes, and makes it less likely that you might lose one of the claws, of course, assuming you get all 6 to begin with, which I didn't. But that doesn't top the fact that Series 6 Wolverine came with a base styled after a Japanese temple and an almost in-scale Ogun figure sitting cross-legged holding a katana. It's a twofer. Extra hands doesn't beat a second figure. Round 2 goes to Series 6 Wolverine for giving you an extra figure for your collection, even if it's basically just an unarticulated, frowning sword holder. Let's talk about those removable claws for a moment. Since the first Wolverine action figure back in 1984's Secret Wars, toy companies have been trying to figure out the solution to the claw problem. Make them retractable, make them removable, make them solid, make them bendy and safe. Usually you end up with claws that can't be removed that are about as solid as metallic gray fruit roll-ups. They bend and warp and just look terrible. Series 6 came very close to getting it right, but the quality from figure to figure varied a bit too much due to the softness of the plastic. They were the right basic shape, but far too flexible to look dangerous. But Juggernaut Wave takes advantage of the fact that Hasbro finally solved the problem back in 2012 with shorter, stronger, straighter, removable claws, which is what they've been using ever since. They look great, and you can even pose him with just 1 or 2 claws popped for various effects. Juggernaut Wave Wolverine wins round 3 for, ironically, being more flexible with claw options. When it comes to the paint on these two figures, the only real difference is which approach you prefer. Series 6 colors are very dark and muted, giving them a bit more of a realistic feel, and Juggernaut Wave goes high contrast with a much brighter yellow. But the real difference in paint, even if you don't care about the color approach, is Series 6 hairy arms. Juggernaut Wave Wolverine is baby smooth. I don't know if he's started waxing or what, but it's a detail that has been sorely overlooked. Round 4 goes to Series 6 for remembering that Logan is so hairy, he doesn't need sleeves. Series 6 Wolverine has personality. While I wouldn't describe him as a character who wears his emotions on his sleeve, you know this figure is angry. Series 6 Wolverine has a face that is equal parts disgust, anger, or bottled up rage that's about to push him into berserker mode. Even standing still, it's a face that accentuates the fact that his claws are out and it's fight time. Juggernaut Wave Wolverine, on the other hand, has almost no expression of any kind. Is that disappointment? Is he deep in thought? Is that contemplating his next move? It seems like it's no expression at all, which takes some of the punch out of the many slashing poses that you're going to want to put him in. If he came with that beer I mentioned earlier, maybe it would be an "I'm just having a beer after a mission that almost killed our entire squad of X-Men, and I'm thinking about my place in this crazy, crazy world we live in." But it doesn't, so the best way I can describe it is nonplussed. Round 5 goes to Series 6 Wolverine for being angry and showing it. Series 6 Wolverine is a 12-year-old figure, and while the articulation might be a bit dated, it is still a figure that stands strong today. From color treatment to sculpt to articulation, it has a lot going for it on the scorecard. However, there is one category above all the others that really decided the winner here, and it's the claws. Series 6 floppy spaghetti claws just aren't acceptable now that there's a better alternative. Juggernaut Wave is the new Wolverine standard. From claws to boots to belt buckle, this is the figure that future Wolverines should be measured against. Cross your fingers and hope that you can find one, and if you do, check it to make sure that it has all 6 claws, unlike mine. Thanks for watching. Please give this video a like, hit subscribe, share this video with your toy and comic book friends. Leave a comment below whether you agree or disagree. This was a tough one. Both figures have a lot of pros and very few cons. My Juggernaut Wave Wolverine really only came with 5 claws, which was a punch right in the stomach since I ordered a whole case so I wouldn't have to chase this figure specifically. Of the 8 figures, he was the one I really had to have, especially since I passed on the previous versions of Wolverine that had the removable claws. I spoke with customer service at Hasbro, and while they were super polite, thank you, Veronica, and they are sending me a coupon as consideration for my adult collecting woes, it still doesn't put a 6th claw on Wolverine's hand. Thanks for ruining my adulthood. Cut.